you're sitting in, and finally bipartisan action happened. The president will sign that into law this week.
So, Kellyanne, I hear you. And if I talked to the restaurant owner here, Vespa's Pizzeria here, and they were so thankful. They said it was a godsend, the ability to tap into PPP through the SBA. They said we couldn't have reopened. My wife and I were driving around yesterday, and we saw on a wall of a restaurant, GoFundMe. They're having a hard time. South Carolina will open soon. It's in the South. What do you say to those who may not open soon, the states that may take a lot longer? New Jersey, where you're from, New York, maybe Louisiana. Will there be additional funding if they need to get over this hump to reopen businesses?
There may be. The president said he's looking at state and local funding as well, especially if it's COVID related. And you're right that this is not a one-size-fits-all country. Some places, thank God, had much lower infections, have more hospital and ICU capacity, ventilators available now if, God forbid, they had a surge. But for places where you've had a low infection rate and where those numbers have been going down for 14 straight days or really have leveled off, and where people are looking at the president's 3-phase plan for reopening America, reopening their state, they're taking seriously that plan and implementing it as they see fit. Eric, we want to make sure everybody continues to adhere to these guidelines, though, regardless of where they live and who they are. Everyone must continue to physically distance, continue to wear face coverings or masks as they're asked to by the local and state governments, and continue to practice good hygiene. The country's done such a wonderful job being part of the solution here, and we must continue that as we gradually reopen pieces of this economy, state by state, municipality by municipality.
You know, Kellyanne, another friend of ours down here who owns a small business, and they say we're ready to open because the governor said they could open. McMaster said South Carolina retail can open. They can't find the employees. Employees don't want to come back to work. Here's my concern. A lot of employers and employees are looking whether or not there will be, I guess, legal responsibility to employers who open and then employees get sick. I'm understanding, and maybe this is something we need to talk to someone else about, but I do understand that some sort of blanket coverage that the federal government can say that will remove employers from legal responsibility if they do open the doors and an employee gets sick. Would the president entertain that? Is he looking into that?
Well, Eric, I'm not prepared to talk about that policy today, but I will tell you what we've already done. This administration, this president directed under the CARES Act for the hospital money to a big portion, over $30 billion, to be set aside through the special enrollment so that uninsured Americans who have COVID-related treatment, that they will be covered. A month before that, we covered the testing for COVID. So that's all being paid. And then you look at the three largest the three of the largest private insurers in this country, Humana, UHC, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, they're also covering COVID-related expenses for their insured. They insure roughly a third of the nation. So this is being covered. But look, I think that employers also have to, part of reopening is that you feel comfortable that you either are doing temperature checks or testing, or that your facility is properly sanitized under the CDC guidelines. Maybe you get rid of the break room. Maybe you remind people to socially, physically distance in the restrooms. Maybe some folks can return to work before others because they don't have underlying conditions, or they're asymptomatic, haven't been exposed, and they're healthy. So I think employer by employer, they need to make those decisions. And folks, get back to work if you can. The dignity of work and that paycheck and everything that goes with it, and contributing. You know how great this economy, this Trump economy, was before COVID hit. It'll be great again, and you'll be part of it.
Yeah, and Kellyanne, so we're fortunate to have you. 44 million households in America get this broadcast, Sinclair broadcast. You probably have the best access to the commander-in-chief. Just do us a favor. We have about a minute or so. How is he doing? This has to be so much weight on his shoulders. He's got the weight of the country, maybe even the world, on his shoulders, because how this coronavirus goes, he has to feel it day in, day out, going to that briefing room. How is he doing emotionally? How's he doing physically, Kellyanne?
Thank you so much for asking about the President of the United States in that way, Eric. And I want to assure you and your 44 million viewers across this great nation, the President has really stepped up. And with the gravity and responsibility of this unprecedented pandemic in our country has come a great deal of humility. The president looks at these facts and figures, sees the death count, the cases, hears from these governors and what they need. You know, the president said it was, quote, the worst day he's had when he heard we might need to supply hundreds of thousands of ventilators to the states. New York alone requested 40,000 ventilators. We sent them 12% of that, and now, thank God, they're sharing them with other states. But this president, his first priority has always been the safety and security of the American people, and now that has also included a pandemic. So the president goes up at 9, 10 o'clock at night every night. He works harder than anyone here. He is a scientific marvel, frankly. His energy level, his healthiness, his sturdiness, and his ability to go in front of the American people every single day to provide information, education, and tell the American people how they can help be part of the solution, and where he's managing both a medical crisis and a financial crisis at the same time. Look, I think the president is doing things only a president can do, deploying the Domestic Production Act, talking to the other G7 leaders about this global pandemic, working across the aisle with members of the House and Senate to get the trillions of dollars in aid to the industries and individuals who need it. Also working across the aisle with governors all across this country, the tribal lands, the rural communities. He also, he and Secretary of State Pompeo have repatriated, brought home over 60,000 Americans who were stranded across the world when this all hit. He also has deployed the National Guard, over 30,000 of them across this country, DOD doctors and nurses, the Comfort and the Mercy in New York and Los Angeles. So he's doing things only a president can do, and he's doing them 24/7, completely focused on this pandemic. As I like to say, we don't have time to talk about Biden and Bernie around here. We're talking about ventilators and vaccines, and the president is leading that charge.
Right. All right. Kellyanne Conway, we thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Very, very busy person in the White House. Counselor to President
Thank you, Eric.
Donald J.
And the president said to send his best to you. Thank you.
Dr. Nicole Saphier just released a brand new book this week called Make America Healthy Again. Dr. Saphier joins us. Thank you for joining us. Maha, as they say in the book world, I guess, this week. Doctor, I noticed that you're a radiologist, and I noticed that you're at Memorial Sloan Kettering in the breast imaging area. Very important question here. If one of our audience members is watching right now, and they may have found a suspicious mass or a lump, do they immediately go and get it checked, or because of what's going on with coronavirus, do they wait till things calm down? What's your recommendation?
That's a really big question, and something that we're struggling with a lot right now, especially in this time with COVID-19. And so, you know, unfortunately, we have people that are staying home. They're not seeking medical attention because they're more worried about coronavirus than perhaps something else. But the truth is, delayed cancer care as well as delayed medical care for other issues could actually be significantly worse than COVID-19 itself. So absolutely, if you were to find a new lump or you have some new symptoms, you want to be calling your doctors. You don't want to be so paralyzed in fear from coronavirus that you're neglecting other things that could actually be wreaking havoc.
Yeah, very important. And I think we need to hit home with this with our audience, that if you're suspicious about something, just go see someone. Go get a call into a doctor. Go into an emergency room. COVID-19 will take care of itself, but you may be putting your own life at risk. Dr. Saphier, in your book, you talk about politicians and some of the writings that you've done. Politicians need to stop playing doctor. Please explain that.
Well, I mean, how bad behavior in big government have caused $1 trillion crisis. That's absolutely true, the way that I feel it. So something that's rendered us kind of vulnerable in COVID-19 is our chronic illness prevalence. 6 out of 10 Americans have at least one chronic disease. Not only does chronic illness lower our immune system, so we have a harder time fighting off viral infections, but it's also caused our hospital systems to be quite busy. And this is why we had to make makeshift hospital beds in Central Park, because we didn't have enough open beds for all the COVID-19 patients. Now, for me, one of the big problems that I had with government intrusion coming into the healthcare system was the Affordable Care Act. Now, albeit the Affordable Care Act was altruistic at best, because that they said that they just wanted to make sure that everyone had access to health care. And how could you argue with that? There's nothing wrong with that. And you actually sound like a pretty bad person if you argue against that. But the truth is, when the government steps in the way that they did with the Affordable Care Act, they took any incentive away for positive behavior and for those people to try and decrease the prevalence of chronic illness, because they said no matter how you act, no matter what medical illness you get, regardless of whether you could have prevented it or not, you're going to be covered. And so unfortunately, it's the person who's actually living a healthier life and doing everything that's right. They're seeing their doctors, they're eating as healthy as possible, they're exercising. They're now having to offset the cost of someone who perhaps is saying, well, I'm going to eat whatever I want. And maybe they're even smoking cigarettes. And that's not fair. And when I feel like when we live in the United States, we have so much freedoms, but we have to remember with freedom comes responsibility. And when government steps in, unfortunately, they take that away.
Well, Dr. Saphier, let's stay on this virus right now. The CDC this week just almost blows everyone's mind to think about this, but they came out and said expect the coronavirus, COVID-19, to come back this fall with a vengeance. Now, on this, we've asked this question to other doctors on the show. I want to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 100, what are the odds, what are the chances that we're going to have to, number one, social distance, I guess we'll still be doing it, but number two, shelter in place. Are we going to be back in our homes again come this fall? Your thoughts?
You know, I am cautiously optimistic that we will not have to go through this process again. We're not going to have to get to that point where we're going to be sheltering in place. But the truth is, this is a novel coronavirus. It's proven to be more contagious than other viruses that have been circulating for years. And so when one person has it, they will tend to infect a lot more people than is what we've seen in the past with the common cold or the flu. And the truth is, we don't have a proven treatment or a vaccine readily available yet. However, this is why I'm optimistic, because I do believe in the integrity of the American people right now. They're seeing what we are going through right now, and they know we don't want to get back to this place again. So what does that mean? That means that we have to continue to have some level of social distancing, probably for the next year, until we have a vaccine for this virus. And also, maybe if we continue to encourage people, they will actually be getting their flu shots this year, as well as their pneumonia vaccine this year. Because it sounds silly, but if you get those vaccines, then you have a decreased likelihood of getting sick from those other illnesses, which means that we will have more hospital beds open and readily available.
You hit on a question I get all the time, and I'm sorry I didn't ask you this, but the flu shot. I mean, doesn't the flu shot just attack one strain of the flu? So therefore, we have another flu shot, another strain, COVID-19. Who knows if there's going to be COVID-19 2A coming out? I mean, there's 12 different flu shots you can get. You talk about the pneumonia shot. You talk about various forms of Lyme disease shots, other shots. How many shots are we supposed to take?
I mean, let me tell you, that is a big question that I get all the time, and people want to talk about vaccines, but the bottom line is vaccinations actually do prevent illness, and especially in those that are the most vulnerable, they should absolutely be getting vaccinations because it does give them the chance of saving their life. And perhaps in the winter months, what we're going to see is the younger, healthier people will still continue to work, but maybe at that time, we're going to have those with pre-existing conditions or the elderly population try and do more of the digital working like we're seeing right now. If people can do teleservices, that's going to be crucial. Maybe people are going to wear masks when they're out in public a little bit more. I think this next flu season, this cold and flu season, it's really going to be cold, flu, and corona season. But I think it's going to be different than we've seen in the past. I think you're going to see a lot more masks. I think you're going to keep seeing those dedicated senior hours. You're already seeing the partitions at the grocery stores to keep people protected. I think people are just a lot more aware right now from a public health standpoint of how to stop spread of infections. And this can only be a good thing for us. That just means we're going to come out stronger and cleaner and healthier on the other side.
And certainly a lot more covered up. For the record, better part of 2 years I've been wearing a mask on every flight I take. Oh, great. Cold, flu, and corona season coming up. Dr. Saphier, great having you on. We'll have you back on very soon. Again, the name of the book is Make America Healthy Again, everybody. Dr. Nicole Saphier. All right, Representative Greg Murphy is with us. He's North Carolina Congressman. Greg Murphy is also a doctor. Thank you for joining us. Dr. Murphy, let's start with that, the doctor hat. You know, I get it. We have a coronavirus pandemic. It's killing Americans, and we need to find a solution to that. We need to save American lives. A patient's having a heart attack, make sure you get the heart back in rhythm. But what about all the other diseases? What about all the other things that people are suffering from and dying from? Are we ignoring those to save people from coronavirus?
I think that's a major concern. I look at what we're not taking care of our other patients while we're just chasing one disease, which is obviously the most important disease at this point in time. But there are other individuals, those who need mental health checkups, those who need cancer follow-ups, even cancer treatments have been canceled. But then people are having chest pain and not going to see their doctors. I think it's going to be a very interesting study 5 years from now to look back and say, how many people died because of the virus and how many died because they did not seek routine medical care during the response to the virus?
Well, let's ask a doctor right there. Dr. Murphy, what about it? What do you recommend to people who may have, maybe they feel some sort of chest pain or may have some sort of thing that they're concerned about, yet they're worried about taking up professional medical assets by going to an emergency room? What's your recommendation? When do you go? If it's not coronavirus.
Well, I think the rules really should not have changed. You know, a lot of our emergency departments have become primary care places for individuals. And fortunately, I think that's stopped. But a lot of folks, you know, if you're having chest pain, there's no reason for you to stay at home. You know, it's a two-sided coin. The physicians in the emergency departments are preparing for what would thought to be a surge, but then patients are also afraid to go to the emergency department because they're afraid of becoming infected. I really think the rules as far as chest pain and all the other disorders have not changed, and that if you need medical care, you need to seek it.
You know, I'm going to ask you this because I'm an example of this. I had never had a colonoscopy in my life. My wife's like, you got to go, you got to do this. I scheduled it. Now, had I scheduled it during this whole epidemic and it was canceled, I may not reschedule it. What's the fallout to something like that? These, you know, not necessarily urgent, not necessarily pressing medical issues, but certainly things that will keep us healthier going forward. When do we do these things?
I think there'll be significant fallout because so many of those things, just as you're suggesting, a colonoscopy, you pick people up who are asymptomatic, they're not having any symptoms at all, and you find cancers oftentimes. I think we're going to have a reckoning because people did not seek care. You know, is that wrong? No, we I believe, moved what resources we needed to for the virus and for the emergency care. But by all means, and I'm really an advocate for this, we need to get back to the business of taking care of people in all realms as physicians and caretakers.
You know, I got to say, this is one of the most important things we can bring to people. In other words, we're sitting here on television, we're talking, we've heard a lot of the stories, a lot of the questions going back and forth. But I think one of the most important things that have come, at least from this show, is right here, a physician telling us, get out, do the routine things that you're supposed to be doing, the checkups, the colonoscopies, the others, the blood tests. Do the things that you are supposed to be doing anyway and get back into that routine because we don't want to have another massive amount of people dying for the reasons other than COVID-19. Dr. Murphy, we're going to say thank you, Dr. Greg Murphy, North Carolina Congressman. Thank you, sir. Ahead on America This Week, he was handpicked by the president to help with the nation's plan to reopen. I talk one-on-one with Stephen Moore. You don't want to miss this interview.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand, America.
United we stand.
We stand, America.
United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand, America.
United we stand.
We stand, America strong.
And President Trump assigned him to the Economic Task Force to reopen the economy. Also, senior economist at the Heritage Foundation, good friend of mine as well, Steve Moore. Steve, good to have you on. You're an important guy right now. You're talking about reopening the economy. What is your idea, Steve? And again, I understand the task force is very well attended, well represented. Literally probably dozens, if not hundreds of people on it. What is your idea for reopening? Hot spots, no hot spots, A's, B's, odd days, even days? Give us an idea.
Well, first of all, the essential thing here is that we do reopen the economy and we get it opened as quickly as possible. Look, we obviously have to be very attentive to the public health risks, and we have to also make sure that we're putting saving lives first. But we've reached the point where the carnage to our economy, and not just our economy, but you've seen 600% increases in people calling in suicide hotlines. You're seeing huge increases in child abuse, and you're seeing drug overdoses and all sorts of social problems that are related to locking down an economy and keeping people in their homes. So we got to get the economy up and moving, and there's 4 or 5 states that are doing that now, and I think they'll be led by many others. And my first advice to the president was, do not slip from that May 1st date. We really need to get this open pretty quickly, but you're right, we also have to do it in a safe way. You probably know this, but almost half of the counties in the United States have virtually no coronavirus cases and virtually no deaths. So why don't we start, you talked about odd day, even day things. Why don't we start in the areas of the country that are unaffected? If you look at a map, what you'll see is there are about 12 cities, including obviously New York, which accounts for about half of the cases in the United States, but cities like Newark, New York, Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago, New Orleans, San Francisco that account for about 80% of the cases. So yes, let's keep them quarantined, but much of the rest of the country is ready to get open, in my opinion, and I think the president agrees with that.
Yeah, and clearly, I mean, we're sitting around here, we're seeing, I saw restaurants with GoFundMe page, addresses taped to their window. It's horrendous. There's so much blood in small businesses in the street right now. It's awful to see. Agree with you 100%. Steve, talk to me a little bit about, I've been pushing this plan, and I know everyone, it's just that our audience really would like to hear someone like you to weigh in on this plan. I've been talking about doing a prepaid debit card, Steve. So in other words, every household gets, my number was $2,300, whatever. But it's money that either you use it or you lose it. So it expires off the debit card. My concern with sending people the $1,200 checks that we're doing, or with bailing out from the top down, which is what we're doing, none of it funnels itself down to the consumer and down to the small businesses. Or what it does is, when that number burns off, you haven't sparked demand enough to keep a lid on the consumer buying, which you and I both know the consumer supports the economy to the tune of 70%. When all the money that the feds are throwing at these businesses burns off, the consumer is still not present. So why not give the consumer money that they have to spend, not they could spend?
Well, a couple of thoughts about this. I mean, let me first start with the big picture here. And I think there's a lot of wisdom to what you're saying. But it all really comes down to one thing. Until we get these businesses up and running and producing things, and the American people on the job, producing goods and services, it's not going to matter how many of these debit checks, debit cards you send out. It's not going to matter how many $1 trillion bills.
But Steve, allow me and again, you and I have been on TV for the better part of 2 decades. I'm not suggesting just the debit card. I'm saying in addition to helping small businesses through the PPP, SBA, my concern, Steve, you and I both know this. The numbers, the consumer supports the economy to the tune of 70%. If we've been coddling and cocooning for 5 or 6 or 8 months, who knows when they come back, if they ever come back to the level that they were before. And we need that. Don't we need to spark consumption?
Well, I would say we've got to start with production. I mean, the big problem right now is you got half of the businesses closed and they're not producing anything. And look, I'm not arguing with you. I think that your solution probably makes a lot of sense. All I'm saying is, if companies aren't producing things, the production process, this starts with basic economics. The economy starts with people producing things, because nobody can consume anything until producers produce. And when you've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50% of businesses that are on the sidelines that can't produce, that is a real problem. I like your idea. I like the idea of a payroll tax suspension. That's something I've really been pushing with Art Laffer and Steve Forbes and Larry Kudlow so that when businesses get up and running, you give every worker a 7.5% pay raise, right, for working more.
Love that.
And then you do the
Love that.
Well, employers, it's great too because it reduces their payroll costs.
Yeah, and not only that, Steve, I got to leave it there, but not only that, maybe even incentivize the essential workers, the truckers, the store clerks, the first responders, and the people on the front lines of the medical industry, incentivize them even further. Steve Moore, appreciate it. I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you're there. The Coronavirus Task Force reopen the economy. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's get opinion from both sides of the aisle. Again, opinion, we have Amisha Cross, who's coming from us from the left side, and from the right side, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Great to have you guys back again. So, guys, I just want to let you know, I reached out to the WHO, the World Health Organization, had some questions regarding China and a little bit of their kind of shady activities lately. You know, I'm going to put up the answer that they gave us. We asked them if they believe that China was telling the truth, and they believe the numbers and what we should do with China. And I'll just give you a quick response that I don't think they answered any of it. They said WHO is constantly analyzing data as we receive it and working closely with global experts on a wide range of topics, yada, yada, yada. And then they go to this. At this stage, it's not possible to determine precisely the source of the virus which caused the COVID-19 pandemic. So here's the point, Sebastian. What I asked them was, are they sure, not that it came from a bat, I think we all believe it came from the horseshoe bat, but are they sure it didn't come from a Chinese lab? Again, WHO pushes back, doesn't give us any answers. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing the email with us, Eric. That's real news. That was a totally bureaucratic and non-answer. The fact that you asked them concrete questions about where it came from, China's culpability, what they're doing about it, and they tell you, oh, we're the WHO and we have protocols and we've shared them with nations around the world. Somebody has something to hide. And Tedros, the head of the WHO, who is a communist from Ethiopia, who was installed with the help of Xi Jinping, the communist president of China, he is a man who has already covered up pandemics in his own country. Look at the facts. I've written a long piece for the Heritage Foundation, the Daily Signal, everything we know about what China has done, intimidating journalists, intimidating scientists, disappearing journalists, ordering genomic labs in China to destroy the evidence of COVID-19. These are all unclassified facts, but I guess the WHO doesn't know them, but we do.
Yeah, and Misha, one thing blew me away is last week, this ABC, NBC, and CBS put together what I think they called a Global Citizen, where they had a bunch of musicians and artists raising money for the WHO in the midst of us pushing back. I pushed back hard on this group. I think they've completely allowed China to lie to the American people, to lie to the rest of the world. Amisha, where is the disconnect between the liberal celebrities who are backing the WHO and pretty much the rest of America going, hey, you allowed this coronavirus to spread and kill tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people?
The setup here is problematic because the Trump administration and his acolytes have gone about basically blaming the World Health Organization for his own issues when it came to making the American public aware and preparing us for this pandemic. The WHO, to its credit, has done demonstratively well across decades of providing the information necessary, the medical information necessary, scientific research necessary to work through some of the major crises we have seen across the globe. This is no different. I don't think that a celebrity endorsed and activated fundraising process was something that should be taken negatively at all. Celebrities have been fundraising for coronavirus relief for a while at this point.
Now, allow me to clarify. I'm going to give this to Sebastian. I have no problem with celebrities fundraising for coronavirus. My problem is that this was a fundraiser for the WHO, who, Sebastian, I believe is complicit in allowing China to literally kill Americans, kill citizens. Talk about global citizens. China has killed global citizenry because they're hiding behind the WHO. Yours, Sebastian.
Charity events are great. America is the most charitable nation in the world. Just look at the figures on charitable giving. But for billionaires, millionaires, music artists, celebrities, to raise money for the organization. I guess Amisha was asleep for the last 2 months. The WHO said that the coronavirus, the Wuhan virus, is not transmissible to human beings from human being to human being. The WHO said there is no need for a travel moratorium from China. And this is the organization that the celebrities want to give money to. They are responsible, and they have blood on their hands of the WHO.
Final thoughts, Amisha Cross.
What we know is that the coronavirus and a lot of information regarding how it was transmitted has changed over the past few weeks and the past couple of months. And that has been noted by global scientists, by our pediatricians, by our doctors of all different ilk. And we know that this is something that is steadily being tracked. Yes, because pediatricians originally thought that this was going to be something that affect children.
We're going to leave it there, but Amisha, I love you dearly, and but I think you missed the point that it wasn't about raising money for the coronavirus, and it wasn't about talking about the deadly effects of corona or COVID-19. It's all about what does the WHO, World Health Organization, are they complicit in the spread of coronavirus? I would say yes. I guess you would say no. We're going to leave it right there. Amisha Cross, Sebastian Gorka. See you again very soon.
Thanks, Eric.
Coming up next, after a quick break, we're getting answers to your questions straight from the experts. Doctors Dave Campbell and Dr. Todd Dorfman have all the answers. Stay with us. Each week, we make sure that we hear you. Keep calling, 888-601-0032. The call is toll-free. Tell us how you're doing. How do you feel about being stuck at home? And generally, just let us know what your opinions are so we can make sure they hear you too. Hundreds of calls poured in last week. Take a listen to just a few.
Hi, my name is Dawn. I'm from Oregon. It's the first time I've watched your show, and you know what? I think you're right. China should be charged. They're guilty of killing a bazillion people.
Hi, this is Stormy from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I was wondering if China keeps inventing these viruses like the coronavirus as a means of aggressive genocide or population control.
We need to keep the American people safe, and that is the best priority, and right now a priority. Working and the economy are secondary.
And here's that number again, 888-601-0032. Again, it's toll-free. This is your time to be heard, folks. Follow me on Twitter at Eric Bolling. Hit me up at ericbolling.com, and we'll make sure they hear you too. Each week, we've been inviting some of the best doctors in the nation to answer your questions about the coronavirus. Let's welcome back Dr. Dave Campbell, Chief Medical Correspondent of MSNBC's Morning Joe, and Dr. Todd Dorfman, who is an emergency medical physician and specialist. Let's bring in the first soundbite, folks. Let's roll it from Caseville.
Hi, I'm from Caseville, Michigan. What my question is, what are they doing with all the infected equipment that are coming out of the hospitals? Where is it going?
You know, let me give this to you, Dr. Todd. I mean, emergency room, you're all PPE'd up, and that stuff gets infected or it gets, used. You roll it up, you throw it in a bin. Where does it go from there?
Yeah, it's a good question. There is a tremendous amount of medical waste. We have to send it either to the hospital. Some hospitals actually have incinerators and ways to deal with all of our hazardous waste, as we call it, and they go in special bins. Additionally, there's companies that contract with hospitals that take care of hazardous waste and pick it up on a regular basis. So it does create a lot of waste, but it all gets incinerated in special ways by special companies.
Very good news for a lot of us. Okay, let's put up that next full screen from a Twitter user, Vegas Free Play, questioning. Now, here's I'll try and read this. Asks, the whole testing model means nothing when you can be negative today, when the test is taken, and go out an hour later and become infected. They would like to please explain to me, why would you test me in my house over 30 days with no contact and no symptoms, and then I feel great? So again, let's go with you, Dr. Dave. I guess this person is asking, what is the state of testing in America right now? It's been all over the board. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah. First, to answer her question of whether she should or would be tested, if she's been isolated for 4 weeks in her home and has seen nobody, most people would not recommend testing her. That being said, we are rapidly increasing the amount of testing, both viral antigen testing, which is the type that we've been hearing about for months, and we're now increasing the antibody testing. The testing for the virus will tell you if you are presently infected with COVID-19, the virus. The antibody testing might tell you if you have immunity, and it will likely tell you if you've been exposed to the virus, but the specificity and accuracy of the antibody testing is still a work in progress, Eric.
And Dr. Todd, I think this week we just learned that I believe that someone had died. They did an autopsy. They exhumed a body, did the autopsy, and found a coronavirus death in America, I believe in America, as early as February 6th, which is new news. We had not known of anyone dying from coronavirus until 3 weeks later, up until this recent news.
Yes, I think that's one of the big issues behind the testing, Eric. I mean, the bottom line is we don't actually know when the coronavirus in this particular strain started to circulate, and we also don't know who actually has it. There's not enough widespread testing, and as was just mentioned, just because you're antibody positive doesn't necessarily confer the fact that you have immunity. We see this with the yearly influenza, which you mentioned on your last segment. Each year we get a flu shot because the virus changes. So we really don't know enough at this point about how many people have been exposed, how many people have been exposed to the particular strain causing this disease, and whether or not the people who have been exposed will be immune in the future. And that's all going to come out over the next several months.
All right, control room, let's skip the next Twitter. Let's go right to that next soundbite question. I'm really interested in hearing the answer from both the doctors. Take a listen to this, guys.
My question is, why haven't we heard anything about the virus in Russia?
So, Dave, talk about this a little bit. I'm watching different areas, and I'm seeing, some places that you would think would have high incidences of coronavirus deaths. Russia, for example. Why are they so low?
We don't know for sure, Eric, because it's Russia after all, and the communication may be a little bit off. What we do know is we have more than twice as many people in the United States as they have in Russia. We also know that they're about 4 weeks behind in the number of cases that we have. So a month ago, we had 50,000 cases. And today, they have probably 50,000 because they had 47,000 2 days ago. So they are on an upward trajectory. We are on an upward trajectory. We're just 4 weeks ahead of them.
Yep. Yeah. Guys, I got to go. I hate to do this to you, Dr. Todd. I wanted to hear your answer, but I promise to bring you back and have you go first the next time, Dr. Todd Dorfman and Dr. Dave Campbell. Thank you both so much answering our viewers' questions. Appreciate your time, fellas. A test that can tell you in minutes whether you've had the coronavirus. Next, how it works and what that could mean for future testing.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand America.
United we stand.
We stand America.
United we stand.
America, one nation, from Florida to St. Louis to Seattle. America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, delivers rough and tumble political arguments.
On the left, this new embrace of socialism.
The whole thing is ridiculous.
Hard-edged opinions.
The media let Joe Biden get away with his first big lie.
They can come after me all they want, but they're going to have to kill me if they want me to stop defending the president.
Tough topic debates.
Destabilization in the Middle East, more chaos and more terrorism.
Unless we get away from all of this hatred, we're going to destroy ourselves.
We have to solve the border problems.
The wall is a big chunk of what we're talking about.
America This Week reveals the topics and issues that pulse throughout America. Investigates stories revealing toxic forever chemicals in water supplies.
My family was poisoned. My child was poisoned. I have been poisoned.
There he is, over here, straight ahead.
Chaos at the southern border.
Go, 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 go.
Cartels, rape, gangs, and violence.
So you guys are both hitmen?
America This Week investigates the facts and the falsehoods and relentlessly seeks the truth on your behalf.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week. Imagine a test that can tell if you've ever had COVID-19, and it only takes 15 minutes. James Torres with Sinclair Station WPEC in West Palm Beach, Florida, shows us just how that test is being done.
The antibody test will tell you one of three things. This is a diagram of what that test result will look like. If a line appears up top here next to this C, that means you don't have the antibodies for the coronavirus and you likely have not been exposed to it. If you get a line here in the middle next to this IgG, that means you do have the antibodies to the coronavirus. You likely have been exposed and you likely might even be immune to the disease. Now, if you get a line here on the bottom half of the test next to this IgM, this is probably the worst case scenario. This means you are currently infected. Now, I had a chance to sit down with a nurse and a doctor as they were getting their tests done, and they were actually disappointed to see their results.
The moment we chose to do medicine, that's one of the risks we take, right?
The risk of contracting coronavirus is undoubtedly higher for medical professionals like Isabel Bueno, and Nicole Jablonski, who work here at the Medical Group of South Florida in Jupiter.
It'd be nice if you were moved.
That's why they're taking one of these rapid COVID-19 tests. It will tell them if they've ever been exposed to the virus.
That way, I know that to my patients, I won't give it to my patients because I'm hoping that I already got some exposure.
The main reason why I'm getting one done, my dad has lung cancer now, so I want to make sure that I have not been exposed, so I continue to take him to his visits and spend time with him.
Blood is drawn from their fingers, then they wait 15 minutes.
It feels like half an hour for sure.
Anxiety. You just never know. You never know.
I'm hoping that at some point I was exposed and I do have the antibodies.
A line on the top half of the test means it's negative, meaning both women do not have the antibodies in their system, likely meaning they've never been exposed. And they're actually disappointed.
Yeah, I'm disappointed.
Wear gloves, keep washing your hands, wear your mask, just still be watch yourself.
Though the results aren't what they wanted, having the technology available is something they say people in the medical field find extremely valuable.
We want to protect those that have not been exposed. We want to protect those that are older, and we're doing this for this community.
According to Henry Schein, the creator of this test, these tests are not yet FDA approved, but they are fast-tracked and made available through FDA emergency guidelines. For America This Week, I'm James Torres.
Every week we honor first responders who died in the line of duty protecting our great country. After contracting coronavirus, Deputy Chief Inspector Saeed Rahman of the New York Fire Department passed away earlier this month. Rahman was a 22-year veteran of the department and is survived by his wife and their 4 sons. Assistant Fire Chief Rick Johnson with Tullytown, Pennsylvania Fire Department also passed away from coronavirus. He was with the department for 27 years. Assistant Chief Johnson leaves behind his wife and children. Rest in peace, first responders.
United we stand, we never fall. This perilous fight, it takes one and all. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand America.
United we stand.
We stand America.
United we stand. Ready to help, ready to serve. It takes everyone with steady nerves. Everyone stands, American strong. Strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand America.
United we stand.
We stand America strong.
City by city, state by state, town by town, stand American great. Everyone stands American strong. When strength by one equals strength by all. American values, American pride. Your neighbor needs you, each person, each time.
We stand America.
United we stand.
We stand America.
United we stand.
And before we go, here's something that caught the attention of America and us this week. It's tough for some athletes to quit the game. And these tennis players in Liguria, Italy, figured out a way to social distance and play tennis. That's right, they're playing tennis from the rooftops of their homes. I wonder how many balls have hit the street below. People walking by, hopefully no cars are parked down there. Well, thanks for joining me again, and a special thanks to Vespa Pizzeria for allowing me to use their space to host this show. Again, 5th week in a row we're hosting from an empty restaurant, a shuttered restaurant. Remember, now more than ever, it's important to support these businesses. Gift cards, takeouts, if they're available. Online orders, it can be the difference between life and death for these small businesses. Now, if you haven't checked out some good news with John Krasinski on YouTube yet, it's a must. This week, he hosted a virtual prom after being inspired by an Alabama father who threw a prom for his daughter, and he had some special guests to perform, like the Jonas Brothers. Watch this.
We go together, better than birds of a feather, you and me. We change the weather. Say the word and now